Hello and welcome to News Central Now. I am Adebola Adedwa. The top stories at this hour. Abia State government seals off buildings still under construction that collapsed on Christmas Day. ECOWAS describes terrorism allegation against Nigeria and other member states by Niger Republic as unfounded. Senegalese Prime Minister set to revoke amnesty law granted to former President Macky Sall. And details shortly. Let's begin by telling you that the Abia State government has sealed off a building still under construction on Ozietem Street in its capital city, Umuahia, after it caved in on Christmas Day. The general manager of the Umuahia Capital Development Authority, Kingsley Agomo, confirmed the government's action to News Central in a phone interview, where developers appeared to be at large. The cause of the collapse has not yet been officially established, but residents in the area say there were no casualties as workers did not show up due to the festive season.
I'm a project manager by profession. When I saw the building, I found out one of the reasons why the building collapsed was the strength of material was poor, and the engineer and the architecturing work was not really, I don't think they're professionals about that. So they have to seal off for now, stop work, come and, I think, negotiate and do the needful before the work commenced.
You see, AC engineer, or see, no help, AC help, or see, iron bender, or engineer from the here site or agreement. You can have with him. You have a like a email or them. When you to at area, but I'm holding here. You get Americans or you get here. I can my here.
Earlier, we had our correspondent Chinwe Gilu, who brought updates from the site of the collapse, where a bulldozer had been deployed to demolish the remaining parts of the structure.
Right behind me is the building that collapsed on the 25th of December, just 2 days ago, and jolted this entire neighborhood of Ozietem Street in Umuahia, Abia State capital. It is yet unknown the reason for the collapse of a section of the building, which was still under construction. But then there were no casualties, and that is understandable because it was on the Christmas Day, so workers are not expected to be on site. But then that also puts a lot of question to the integrity of some of the buildings that go on within the state capital.
Away from that, the Economic Community of West African State has described terrorism allegation against Nigeria and other member states by Niger Republic as unfounded, saying it stands solidly behind its members. The Republic of Niger had accused Nigeria and other ECOWAS members of colluding with France to destabilize the country. But in a statement on Thursday, ECOWAS described the allegations as unfounded. The regional bloc called on all states in the region to promote dialogue and stability and refrain from making accusations that are not supported by any evidence. The federal government had denied Niger Republic's allegation on Thursday. Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, made a rebuttal in a statement amid claims by Niger Republic's military leader, General Abdurrahmani Chiani, that Nigeria was working with France against his country. And to put this in perspective, we're joined by former National Coordinator, Middle Belt Patriot, and that's Zarayi Yusuf. Good evening, glad to have you join me on the news.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. What are your thoughts on ECOWAS disregarding claims made by Niger Republic on Nigeria and other member states trying to destabilize Niger Republic?
Well, first of all, I would want to remind you that the chair or the chairman of the Economic Community of West African States happens to be the very president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That's the first point I would want to put out. And matters of what is true or untrue, I think Nigeria has left that platform a long time ago. And I do not want people to become too particular about the man himself that is being accused, because I did listen to the message of the Nigerian president, when he made his point about how much earlier, prior to the birth of this new terrorist group, I mean, they shared intelligence with Nigeria, and whatever the case may be, I don't know what happened, but it still went ahead and became founded. And I'm sure to a large extent, if he had come out, possibly if he had come out as at the time to say, we have shared this intelligence with the Nigerian intelligence, and it doesn't look as if they are taking the matter seriously, I'm certain there would have been some denial. But whatever the case may be, the Chadian president, if at all he is not saying what is right, then he is quite a mischievous president, which I do not think that is the case. With regards on the side of Nigeria, we have seen many cases where a lot of things were denied, but at the end of the day, they turned out true. The singular fact that we are having the president of a foreign nation making these kinds of assertions with regards to the attitude of Nigeria's security agencies or the president with regards to our sovereignty as a state, as a sovereign independent country, it's already a compromise on our, frontiers, on our sovereignty. And I think if anybody embraces that, what the general said, it will not be out of place whether or not they have the facts, because we have always questioned, like myself, I've always questioned. We don't have a history of colonialism with the French, but then the romance between the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria with the French, especially their president, leaves more questions than answers. So frankly speaking, we're in a difficult situation where I think if you would take a poll, you might find more Nigerians believing what any foreign president would say about the attitude of our own president and the attitude of our own security agencies in handling issues of insurgency than whether the Nigerian military or the president himself. And simply because he happens to be the chairman of ECOWAS, and then there's a document being released to state that the accusation of the Nigerian president is unfounded. It doesn't make any sense. It's just the same man doing the same thing. The president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is the same chairman of ECOWAS. So it's not exactly as if an increase or an addition to the legitimacy of that denial. That basically is what I have to say to that.
Looking at these issues within the ECOWAS bloc, how can this dispute be resolved?
The truth of the matter is, the French, there isn't anything positive basically about their dealings, even with their former colonies. That is the first thing I would want us to understand. So they did not just wake up in the morning and sack the French, talking about the Malians, talking about the Burkinabes and the Nigerians. There are particular reasons. And I am certain, with regards to Niger Republic in particular, they have directly accused France of being solely responsible for crippling their fight against Islamists, the insurgents. And that was one of the key reasons why, that the head of the Nigerian junta is a fighter. He was in the military. He knew how much their soldiers were lost, how much the French sabotaged their effort in fighting insurgencies. And that was one of the reasons why they had to set, the other president aside and sack the French. Unfortunately, the first step, basically the attitude of ECOWAS towards Niger Republic, when that happened, I think maybe it was a miracle or something, but we would have been at war by now if wishes were horses in certain quarters, because it looked as if there was this plan to engage in a military offensive, such that there was already a preemptive attack of cutting off electricity supply and all of that. It's rather unfortunate that ECOWAS will suffer the most. The solution to this is simple. If you do not have any business with the French, come out and say you don't have any business with the French, sack them. And I think to a large extent, some people suggested that there should be a committee to investigate that. Because what we will end up having is a scenario where we are likely going to lose so much of our sovereignty, because even without the presence of any foreign military, it's unfortunate that we can't really say we are in charge of our borders, especially looking at the terrorist cells that are scattered all over the country, and the Lakurawas especially, getting sophisticated to start using drones to kill our military. And the presence of the French, I think long before they were sacked by the Nigerians, they've always been pointed to have a lot to do with sponsoring terrorism in this, part of, sub-Saharan Africa. So I think ECOWAS, not just the chairman, but the member states will have to sit up and wake up to their responsibility. And I would say, unfortunately, the person heading that organization, it's the person that is the president of the most populous black nation in the world, and then somehow the largest donors in the organization. So basically, the organization has always done the bidding of Nigeria, even from the days of ECOWAS.
Now, just to chip in there, Mr. Yusuf, apologies for butting in there. Just to chip in there, you touched on something quite interesting, saying ECOWAS will suffer the most because of this breakaway by these countries, and that's Niger, Burkina Faso, and Benin Republic. But some persons believe otherwise. Looking at what these three countries stand to lose in terms of commerce of trade, in terms of generating wealth, and people say it's a matter of time before they come running back. What do you make of that?
It is not a matter of time. When you argue from an economic perspective, it would have made sense, basically looking at it economically, if all things being equal, this is ceteris paribus. But all things are not equal. The dimension of whatever insecurity has done to, especially Nigeria, is far worse than a Nigeria that would have been under economic sanctions by world powers. Let me put it to you this way. The Nigeria of Abacha's era is much better than the Nigeria of this democratic dispensation, at least since the emergence of this Islamist group, of this terrorist group. In other words, insecurity does more damage to the economy of a country than a poor diplomatic decision does to the country. And actually, it's not exactly a poor diplomatic decision to sack the French, because frankly speaking, they've been in the country for as long as they have been, and the economic gains these countries have had, the independence they've had, the decisions they've taken, the alliances they are making, serves the country better. Unfortunately, what we have as member states of ECOWAS are structures that are not strong enough, are not established enough, and with the presence of these forces, because the truth of the matter is that it's not exactly as if the guy is lying completely. I do not think he will just wake up and say that basically there is what exactly does he stand to gain? An insurgency in Nigeria or an insurrection in Nigeria, or what? He is not. The simple reason is because the very moment there is any such base in that part of the country, whether in the northeast or between Sokoto and Zamfara, as he mentioned, the entirety of that region will cease to enjoy what security is.
I wish we had more time, Mr. Yusuf. Apologies for butting in there. We're pressed for time. We have to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for your insight on the news.
All right.
Former National Coordinator, Middle Belt Patriots, Zariyu Yusuf. Many thanks indeed.
Thank you.
And now to more on security matters. The Defense Headquarters, DHQ, has blamed what is described as secondary explosions for the death of some villagers during airstrikes in Sokoto State. The DHQ's position comes only days after the Sokoto State government said 10 villagers were killed and others injured after airstrikes in Salami local government area of the state. But the Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, said the deaths and injuries were due to secondary explosions and not a direct result of the airstrikes. The Imo State Police Command says it's lost 2 of its personnel in the combat with hoodlums, killed 3 and arrested 2 others suspected to be members of the deadly kidnap and robbery syndicate. The Police Public Relations Officer, Henry Okoye, who disclosed this in a statement in Owerri, also said that they recovered 6 AK-47 rifles, 131 rounds of live ammunition and other vehicles. explained that the police operations followed extensive investigation and intelligence gathering. Men of the Nigerian Navy Forward Operating Base Igbokoda have intercepted a boat carrying 100,000 liters of stolen crude oil at the Idiogba-Mahe coastline in Ilaje local government area of Ondo State. The commanding officer of the base, Captain Ali Usman, disclosed these to journalists during an assessment visit to the site. Captain Usman revealed that the naval team acted on credible intelligence and swiftly deployed its quick response team. According to him, the team intercepted a wooden boat loaded with the stolen crude oil. He said other items used for bunkering activities such as discharge hoses and pumping machines were also found in the boat. We'll take a break. Now, when we return, former Education Minister Obi Ezekwesili blames President Tinubu for deadly stampedes. Details shortly. Join us again. Thank you for staying with us. Former Education Minister and founder of Fix Politics Initiative, Obi Ezekwesili, has accused President Bola Tinubu and other Nigerian politicians of a complete lack of empathy, saying they should be held responsible for the crisis bedeviling Nigeria. The recent tragic stampedes in Ibadan, Anambra, and the Federal Capital Territory resulted in the loss of over 60 lives, including children, as Nigerians struggle for food items amid the festive season. But in his maiden media chart, President Tinubu attributed the mishap to indiscipline on the part of the beneficiaries of the palliatives, accusing organizers of lack of coordination. But criticizing the president and other Nigerian politicians for impoverishing the people, Ezekwesili said they should be held responsible for the tragedies. And to unpack this, we're joined by a legal practitioner and a social reform advocate, and that's Evans Ofeli. Good evening, glad to have you join me on the news.
Good evening to you.
All right, let me kick off by asking what your assessment is of the former education minister that says that the president lacks empathy for apprehending organizers of the event that resulted in a stampede.
Well, from the interview that the president granted, that is quite very clear that the president was not, he didn't act like a president. He didn't speak like one whose citizen had just died as a result of an avoidable accident. Now, Obi Ezekwesili has just accentuated the remote cause of that. The remote cause is the government, really. I mean, we know how the policy or the lack of policy intelligence has affected the welfare of the citizens. Even when the government is supposed to exist for the citizens, it's not so in our country. So, but the immediate cause to this is the fact that those who organize that were not careful enough. I mean, the duty of care they owe beneficiaries was not dispensed, and that is what led to that accident. And after that, you had repeated accidents, in different parts of the country. Even when the first one happened, the people who organized the second one didn't take precaution from the first one, and then the third one happened. The people who organized the third one didn't take precaution from the second, and it just became bizarre. The issue is that first, we know that people are suffering and they are, hungry and all that. And then government is supposed to come in between that gap. It's even the government that is supposed to be distributing this palliative in the first place to rescue its citizens from poverty. Okay, they are not doing that. Not only are they not doing that, then those who have, step into that duty to have that delivered, now you are blaming them for not being very organized. I don't think that is the way to go. Why is the blame? It is important that we appropriate the issues clearly. First, the duty of care that is required was not dispensed. That is true. Now, what the government ought to have done was to stall that to ensure that the second occurrence does not happen. Now, the second one and third one happen under this watch of the same government. So if we have to blame anyone, wholesomely, we'll blame the government first before we even blame those who organize this event, because the security and welfare of the people is supposed to be the primary purpose of government. That's what the law says.
Just to chip in there. Mr. Ofeli, just to chip in there, talking about the government, how do you think they should have reacted to this? How best should the government have reacted to this?
When the first one happened, the police, Inspector General of Police only made expression to the fact that people should be careful, people should organize themselves well. Those who want to give out palliative should do that in an orderly manner. That is, he just made a statement. He didn't deploy, he didn't sensitize even his men across the country, across all police stations and across all divisions, across all commands, so that those in those sub-units will, ensure that wherever, because we have over 16,000 police stations in Nigeria. I mean, that place where all these incidents happen, you will be surprised that many of them happen a stone throw away from a police station or one law enforcement agency or the other. You understand? So that they were unable to arrest the situation and tame it and nip it in the bud. It's one that calls for security lapses. This is the same way the insurgents come to hit at people, kill people, and before the government respond. Okay, I'm not saying those who organize it are completely exculpated from liability, but I'm saying that the government ought to do what it ought to do. Why the citizens' corresponding obligation is required, but government must sanction that corresponding obligation. Government must be on ground to have that done, and they were not there. So when you have such kind of crowd, it is difficult to control. Even those who organize this event, they don't even have the capacity to control the crowd. They lack the strategy, they lack the competence. Most times, the crowd will even overwhelm them and and the president talked about his own palliative, how he has been given for the past 25 years, and then nothing happened, and the rest of that. But I don't think that is the answer to the question.
Just to chip in, just to chip in there, apologies, Mr. Ofeli. Let me bring us to memory what happened in February 2024, where the Nigerian Customs Service was distributing or selling at an affordable price bags of rice. And we saw what happened then. People, as a result of the stampede, lost their lives. And we didn't see any investigation or anybody held to ransom. I'm talking about those within the Nigerian Customs Service being apprehended for that unfortunate incident. Now, looking at this incident where we have organizers of events like this being apprehended because of stampede activities as a result of, palliatives being shared, would you say the government is being fair when its body did similar exercise? They were not apprehended, but then these set of people are being apprehended. Would you say the government is being fair in its dealings?
That is the double standard we talk about. There are two sets of laws in Nigeria. The one written against the ordinary citizens and the poor, and the one for the government. I mean, somebody did that, organized that of custom, and all the things that happened, we didn't see any prosecution. No one was indicted, prosecuted, or convicted throughout the process. Now, the case of the former queen, she's been detained until now, and I have seen the charge sheet. They prefer the charge sheet, and they're accusing her for murder. That couldn't have been murder. The best you could do is to charge her for involuntary murder, which is manslaughter. But you see how they are going about it. They are going about it the very wrong way. And I do not think that intention to kill was, what was in between that action or that act of charity. I don't think so. So even the police have no clarity on the criminal laws of this country. The government itself, the attorney generals of states, I do not know what they do. I don't know how well they advise their governors. And I don't know how to really appropriate this. I think we're in a very bad place in this country called Nigeria. And I think that people should not, people who are trying to help, how be it that they made mistake along the line. And this is not to be insensitive also to those who lost their lives and their families. But I'm saying that they should give it a human face and see how, this matter can be handled without victimizing, those who are trying to do charity for the larger society.
Mr. Ofeli, now looking ahead, going forward, do you think there should be a body set up for standard procedures for events like this, where you have, say for instance, a crowd of 1,000 people? How many security operatives are needed? A crowd of 5,000 people. Do you think a body needs to be set up to come up with precautionary procedures when organizing such crusades or sharing palliative activities?
No, I don't think a body should be set up. I think maybe they should pass a legislation to that effect, and the state should do that. The state House of Assembly should pass a legislation to that effect, and perhaps they could use one of the ministries already existing, maybe the Ministry of Women Affairs or Humanitarian Affairs or whatever. There is one ministry, really. There is also the Ministry of Youth and Social Development. That ministry can also be used. Okay, you can use an existing ministry to deploy for those purposes, so that those who want to give palliative will first of all have to, get permit, okay, from that ministry, and that ministry will have to work out the strategy, and they will now involve the police to ensure that, and the mobile police, because they are the ones that are actually very good in crowd control, and involve the mobile police to ensure the strategy is put right for the deployment of palliatives
and
to
that's
people.
A fine place to anchor it. Thank you so much for your expertise on the news. Evans Ufeli, a legal practitioner as well as social reform advocate. Many thanks indeed.
You're welcome.
In the meantime, Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed has again berated the policies introduced by the administration of President Bola Tinubu, especially the tax reform bills, describing them as anti-Northern Nigeria. He said that the tax reform bills are aimed at favoring just a section of the country and aimed at shortchanging Northern Nigeria. The governor, who could not hide his feelings but spoke passionately, called on the president and his team to listen to the people over whatever policies they bring and should change them when they are complained. He stressed that no policy should be imposed on the people because Nigeria does not operate an oligarchy system of government or a military rule. He said this in a speech when he received the Christian community in Bauchi State, who visited him at the government house on Wednesday for the annual Christmas homage. Abia State Governor Alex Oti has signed the 2025 budget estimate of 750 billion 282,200,000 naira into law. Governor Oti commended the lawmakers for the speedy consideration of the bill. He said that the budget would give his government the impetus to continue to deliver on his promises to the citizens. He said as budget of sustained momentum, most of the projects that were started in 2013 will be completed in 2024. Presenting the budget to the governor earlier, the Speaker, Abia State House of Assembly, Honorable Emmanuel Emerowa, assured that the lawmakers would continue to work with the executive arm of government to see that Abia State progresses.
We pride ourselves as a serious-minded government. So anything we present, we are ready for scrutiny. And I want to thank you for the great job you did in scrutinizing the budget, disagreeing in a few areas, and also being flexible enough to accept when reasonable responses were given. Probably stop. But we can assure you that this government has its feet on the pedal, and we will continue to do those things we promised our people that will take this state out of poverty.
It's a very aggressive budget. As we promised, we will work with the executive to see that when the state has a progressive government, we are in synergy with the executive so as to give Abia what it is.
A former governor of Edo State and senator representing Edo North Senatorial District, Adams Oshomole, has passed a vote of confidence in the governor of Edo State, Senator Monday Okpewolo, whom he described as not just a team player, but a governor who is committed to speedy dispensation of democracy dividends. Oshomole gave the commendation when he received the governor and his delegation in his Iyamho country home in Isako West local government area on a Christmas visit. Both of them thereafter proceeded to the residence of Oshomole's mother, Alhaja Ashetu. Addressing journalists after the visit, Oshomole expressed satisfaction with the leadership style of Governor Monday Okpewolo.
Merry Christmas. So, Your Excellency, Merry Christmas. But what is new is the things he's doing differently. You know, and look at all the crises the former governor created in traditional institutions, just to create disharmony in so many communities. And he has given hearing to all those who wishes to come and make complaints so that he can redress them and do justice in each of those cases. It's not everything that's about brick and mortar. Some other things have to do with fairness, justice, etc., etc. So I'm satisfied that we are in safe hands. So I can proudly say to Edo people, Edo is now back in safe hands. That is the hands of Governor.
The Director General of the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, Captain Musa Najomo, has scheduled a meeting with CEOs of domestic airlines to address rising concerns over flight delays and cancellations. The announcement was made by NCAA's Director of Public Affairs, Michael Achimogu, on Thursday. Achimogu revealed that Najomo has cut short an assignment to prioritize the issue, emphasizing the authority's commitment to consumer protection. Achimogu recounted addressing angry passengers during a recent delay, ensuring transportation and accommodations for affected travelers. He also facilitated compensation agreements and promoted the use of NCAA's complaint channels. The NCAA has recently intensified measures to enforce airline accountability, marking its first consumer protection action in over a decade. Achimogu also disclosed plans to receive daily weather reports from NIMET to verify airlines' claims. Away from that, the year 2024 has been a mixed bag for the press in Nigeria. Globally, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization says for the second consecutive year, conflict zones have proven dangerous for journalists and media workers, with 2024 seeing at least 68 deaths in the line of duty. Now, more than 60% of these killings occurred in countries experiencing conflict, the highest percentage in over a decade. The report highlights that 42 journalists were killed in conflict zone this year, including 18 in Palestine, which recorded the highest toll. But in Nigeria, from forced disappearances to threat to safety, the Nigerian journalist is still very much in search of a fair play in his trade. Earlier, Nigerian Union of Journalists Achike Chude shared his thoughts on this.
Where the level of success of democracy, you look at the level of the practice of journalism in a country. If it is relatively okay, then you could say that democracy is relatively, okay. So you use, the media, the measurement of the media to also gauge the value of the democracy that we have in a country. And so, like I said, yes, we have press freedom as guaranteed by the Constitution. But whether in actual fact that is guaranteed journalists, that freedom is guaranteed journalists, is to some extent is relative. To some extent, yes. But to some other extent, for as long as the journalist wants to engage in reporting of the political process, it is inherent, it is accompanied by all manners of danger to his person. He's not allowed to freely practice his journalism. And we have seen that in the country. In the past, at least since the beginning of this year, we have had all manners of attacks against journalists and journalism in the country, either through direct physical attack and harassment of the journalist, or through threats against the journalist, both by state actors and non-state actors. In fact, in Africa, I think out of a total of 39 incidented reports in West Africa, about a third of these reports have to do with the harassment of the media in Nigeria.
Coming up, Senegalese Prime Minister set to revoke amnesty law granted to former President Macky Sall. Details shortly. Join us again. Thank you for staying tuned. Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko announced that his government would introduce legislation to revoke the amnesty law granted to former President Macky Sall, which covered 3 years of political violence that resulted in numerous deaths. The controversial amnesty, granted just before the March 2024 elections, sparked significant debate as Sall sought to ease tensions after delaying the presidential race. Critics argue the move aimed to shield those responsible for the serious crimes, including homicides committed during political unrest from February 2021 to February 2024. The law also allowed Sonko, despite his court convictions, to run for president alongside Bassirou Diomaye Faye, who ultimately won. Sonko's speech included a commitment to repeal the law and investigate deaths from political violence, prioritizing justice over vengeance.
Il sera proposé à votre auguste assemblée dans les semaines à venir un projet de loi rapportant la loi d'amnistie votée le 6 mars 2024 par la précédente législature. Pour que toute la lumière soit enfin faite et les responsabilités établies de quelque bord qu'elles se situent. Il ne s'agit pas ici de chasse aux sorcières, encore moins de vengeance, car aucun sentiment de revanche ne nous anime. Loin de là, il s'agit simplement de justice, pilier sans lequel aucune paix sociale ne peut être garantie.
German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier dissolved Parliament on Friday and confirmed the expected date of February 23, 2025 for the early general election prompted by the collapse of Olaf Scholz's government last month. Scholz's coalition was brought down by internal fights over how to revive Europe's largest economy, but a deadly car ramming attack at a Christmas market last week has renewed the country's heated debate over security and immigration. Confirming the dates for the election, Steinmeier emphasized the need for political stability and appealed for the campaign to be conducted with respect and decency.
Liebe Mitbürgerinnen und Mitbürger, ich habe heute entschieden, den 20. Deutschen Bundestag aufzulösen und Neuwahlen für den 23. Februar des kommenden Jahres anzusetzen. Ein entsprechendes Schreiben ist soeben der Präsidentin des Deutschen Bundestages übergeben worden.
A suspected Palestinian attacker from the occupied West Bank fatally stabbed an elderly woman in her 80s in Herzliya on Friday. According to Israeli police and medics, the incident occurred around 9:30 a.m. at Dara Shalit Square. Now, despite efforts to resuscitate her, the woman was pronounced dead at Tel Aviv's Ichilov Hospital. Medics initially treated her for critical stab wounds, but she succumbed to her injuries. Israeli police confirmed the suspect was neutralized and arrested at the scene. The attacker, identified as a Palestinian from the West Bank, was taken into custody for further investigation by the Shin Bet Security Agency. Now, the attack adds to a series of incidents involving Palestinian militants since the Gaza war began on October the 7th.
This is a shocking terrorist attack. We found a woman, approximately 8 years old, outside the nursing home, unconscious on the sidewalk with stabbing wounds. We performed CPR on her and we fought for her life during the evacuation to the hospital.
בשעה 9:31 קיבלנו קריאות רבות, למעלה מ-30 קריאות של קשישה שנדקרת בסמוך. אתם ראיתם את המקום. מה שאנחנו מבינים כשאנחנו מגיעים, ששני אנשים שנמצאים פה במקום הם מאבטחים של הברינקס, הם שומעים צעקות אללה אכבר, מסתובבים, מזהים את הדקירות, חותרים למגע, פועלים בנחישות, מבצעים את הירי ופוגעים במחבל. אני יכול להגיד שהמחבל הוא תושב שטחים, ואני יכול להגיד שהקשישה לצערי נפטרה. אירוע קשה מאוד, תגובה מהירה של המאבטחים ושל השוטרים אחרי 7 דקות שמגיעים לפה.
Let's take a short break. When we return, we'll dive to stories of business and sports. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. In business, Access Holdings PLC has successfully completed its rights issue, raising 370.41 billion naira, despite the Central Bank of Nigeria that's qualifying 41.65 million shares valued at 822 naira 822.60 million naira. Nabila Mohammed, research analyst at Chapel Hill, Denham, shared her insight on the Business Edge show.
The fact that it was oversubscribed just shows the level of confidence that investors have in the Access brand. And we know the story of Access. We know how it came from being at the bottom in terms of lists of banks in the country as far back as 10, 15 years ago, and where it has comfortably placed itself right now, being the largest lender by total assets, as you rightly mentioned. And even by gross earnings, we have seen that the Access group has continued to own that spot in terms of being the top and being the fastest growing as well. So all of this just reflects the confidence that the investors in this particular group have in the corporate strategy, the philosophy of the group, of the Access Holdings group entirely. So yes, I would say that yes, it has just shows how confident that investors are, and the fact that it was oversubscribed speaks volumes. Providing more business loans to corporate customers or retail customers, as the case may be, depends on a couple of factors. The first is the macroeconomic conditions. Of course, it is expected that when you have recapitalized, you would want to carry out your core or primary function of being a lender in an economy. And that is what the bank wants to embark upon, but it has to be supporting macroeconomic conditions that would engender the bank to be able to provide more lending facilities to customers. That is one. The second is that there has to be the demand as well from the borrowers or from the customers, as the case may be, to be able to show and get or secure.
In the world of sports, there was plenty of boxing action at the Balmoral Event Center in Victoria Island on Friday morning as some of Nigeria's finest pugilists traded blows for glory. A total of 7 bouts took place, and in some of the result, Austin, the magnificent dancer Nnamdi, knocked out Agba, the Punisher Mesak, in round 4 of their cruiserweight contest. Light heavyweight star Lekon, the engine Muibi, stopped Anselm Nasegbe of Benin Republic to improve to 17 wins from 17 fights, while a stunned crowd watched policewoman Selina Agu upstage national women's light heavyweight title holder Bolati Toluwole to claim her crown. The highly anticipated main event saw Taiwo Eshepo Agbaje knock out his bitter rival Rowan, the real showboy Lawal, in round 7 to claim the IBU Africa featherweight title. Now both fighters spoke afterwards.
My opponent, you need to work hard. You know what? It's not that easy to become a number 43 in the world, you know. So you need to work hard. If you want a rematch, you should call me back. I'm going to stop him for the 4th round. Okay. If you need a rematch, really want, call me back. You just stop him for the 5th round, and I did it.
I am winning the fight by points. He is the one promising the world 5 rounds, and I already escaped the 5th round. He couldn't stop me in the round 5. He couldn't. But I tell you.
And that's all on news. Let's take a look again at some of the major stories. Abia State government has sealed off buildings still under construction that collapsed on Christmas Day. ECOWAS has described terrorism allegations against Nigeria and other member states by Niger Republic as unfounded. We also told you that Senegalese Prime Minister is set to revoke amnesty law granted to former President Macky Sall. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adedugba.